The day my great-grandmother turned 92, my family put me at the children's table. Not because there was no room. There were 32 empty seats in the west ballroom of Heir Hall, a chandeliered room large enough to host diplomatic dinners and small enough, apparently, to exclude a single mother. My older sister sat near the head table in a silk dress the color of champagne. Her daughter sat beside her in a pearl headband, smiling as if she had already inherited the room. My parents sat with the trustees. My cousins sat with investors. Even distant relatives who barely remembered our family name were given cards with gold edging. My daughter and I were placed beside two restless toddlers, a stack of coloring pages, and a plastic cup of crayons. My name is Elara Voss. I am 33 years old. I am a single mother, and for most of my life, my family believed those three facts explained everything they needed to know about me. They were wrong. They did not know that the quiet woman they mocked for years was the founder and hidden chief executive of one of the fastest-growing infrastructure firms in the country. They did not know I had spent 5 years negotiating projects under holding companies, silent partnerships, and signatures they never bothered to trace. They did not know that in my black leather folder, under the napkin on my lap, I carried contracts worth more than the family estate they were all fighting over. And they certainly did not know that my 6-year-old daughter, the child they called ordinary, would be the one who made the oldest woman in our family smile for the first time that night. My daughter's name is Mira. She was 6 years old, small for her age, with serious brown eyes and a habit of listening before speaking. That habit confused my family. They mistook quietness for dullness. They mistook patience for weakness. They mistook a child who observed everything for a child who understood nothing. My sister's daughter, Penelope, was also 6. Penelope had golden curls, expensive dresses, a private tutor who followed her between houses, and a mother who treated every ordinary skill like breaking news. If Penelope recited 3 lines of a poem, my mother called it genius. If she pressed random piano keys, my father said she had inherited artistic blood. If she mispronounced a French word, my sister laughed and said brilliance often arrived ahead of discipline. When Mira solved a puzzle quietly in the corner, they said nothing. When she read signs before other children her age, they called it a trick. When she played melodies by ear after hearing them once, my sister said I must have trained her to perform for pity. That was my family's talent. They could turn a child's light into something suspicious if the child belonged to me. My older sister, Celeste, had been praised since birth. She was beautiful, social, fluent in expensive manners, and completely dependent on other people doing the work beneath her shine. She did not know how to read a balance sheet, but she knew how to hold one in a photograph. She could not explain a single business proposal, but she could repeat 3 polished sentences at a charity luncheon. My parents called that leadership. They called me practical. In my family, practical was not praise. It meant useful but not admirable, needed but not celebrated, present but never chosen. I became a single mother at 27. Mira's father left before she was born, not with drama, but with paperwork, excuses, and a cowardice so polite that people called him overwhelmed instead of cruel. My family did not comfort me. They filed me away. My mother, Isolde, told relatives I had always been stubborn. My father, Conrad, said I should have chosen better. Celeste said with a soft sigh that some women attracted instability. I was 7 months pregnant when I first heard my mother call me a warning story. She was in the kitchen, speaking to my aunt. I was in the hallway with one hand on my belly and a bag of baby clothes slipping from my shoulder. My aunt said, "Poor Elara." My mother answered, "Poor choices have consequences." That sentence followed me into childbirth. It followed me through midnight feedings, overdue bills, client calls with Mira asleep against my chest, and mornings when I cried in the shower because I did not have time to cry anywhere else. I built my company in those hours. Not in a glass tower, not with applause, At my kitchen table, at 2 in the morning, with a baby monitor beside my laptop and construction drawings spread under bottles and tax forms. I started with consulting work no one in my family respected. Stormwater redesigns, transit logistics, municipal resilience plans, infrastructure risk reviews for clients too small for famous firms and too important to fail. I was good because I could see weak points. I had been raised inside them. My company, Asterion Civic Systems, began under a bland holding name because I did not want my family's surname attached to my work. At first, hiding was survival. Later, it became strategy. By the time my family still thought I was doing freelance technical paperwork, Asterion had offices in 4 cities, silent equity partners, and government contracts my father would have bragged about for years if Celeste had signed them. For years, I let them underestimate me. It hurt. Of course it hurt. People imagine secret success feels glamorous. They do not understand the loneliness of winning in rooms where no one knows your name. I would close a 7-figure infrastructure deal, then attend Sunday lunch where my mother asked whether I had considered finding a stable office job. I would finalize regional partnerships, then watch my father praise Celeste for organizing place cards at a charity brunch. I would fly home from investor meetings, change in an airport restroom, pick Mira up from school, and arrive late to family dinner where Celeste would say, "Still chasing little projects?" I smiled. Not because I was weak, because I was building. There are seasons when defending yourself wastes energy you need for escape. But Mira saw things. Children always do. After one dinner, when my mother praised Penelope for singing half a song and ignored Mira's perfect math worksheet, Mira asked me in the car, "Mommy, why does Grandma clap for Penelope but not for me?" I gripped the steering wheel. That question hurt more than anything they had ever said to me. Because I could survive being unseen. But I could not let my daughter inherit invisibility. I told her, some people only clap when they understand what they are seeing. She thought about that. Then she said, then maybe they need better eyes. I laughed so hard I cried. My daughter was 6 years old, and already kinder and sharper than the adults who dismissed her. The invitation to Great-Grandmother Aurelia's 92nd birthday arrived in thick cream paper. Aurelia Voss was my father's grandmother, the last living founder of Voss Meridian Trust, a family fortune built on shipping, land, rail contracts, and 100 years of carefully polished arrogance. She was old, brilliant, frightening, and almost impossible to impress. When I was a child, she once told me, never mistake inherited chairs for inherited judgment. I did not understand then. I did later. The family had gathered around her birthday for one reason. She was choosing the next steward of the family trust. Not simply an heir, a steward. The person who would control voting rights, real estate strategy, charitable foundations, and the family's old business relationships for the next generation. Everyone assumed Celeste would be chosen. My parents had spent years preparing that story. Celeste, the elegant daughter. Celeste, the natural leader. Celeste, the one with the perfect marriage, perfect child, perfect photographs, perfect smile. Never mind that her husband managed most of their finances. Never mind that her charity board notes were written by assistants. Never mind that she had once asked me whether municipal bonds were the kind with buildings attached. In my family, appearance was a credential. I was invited because leaving me out would look cruel. That was my family's favorite morality. Not being cruel, looking not cruel. 2 days before the banquet, my mother called. "Elara, please dress appropriately." I looked at the contract summary on my desk. $3 billion in regional infrastructure renewal across port systems, flood barriers, logistics corridors, and energy-resilient transport hubs. I had spent 14 months building the consortium, 14 months of calls, site visits, background negotiations, and rooms full of men who assumed the quiet woman at the end of the table was someone's assistant until she began speaking. "What does appropriately mean, Mother?" She sighed. "You know what I mean. Nothing too severe. Nothing that makes you look like you are trying to prove something." I glanced at my reflection in the dark window. I was wearing a black blazer, no makeup except lipstick, and my hair pulled back because I had been working since dawn. "I am not trying to prove anything." "Good," she said. "And please make sure Mira behaves. This is not a school talent show." My hand tightened around the phone. "Mira always behaves." "Yes, but she can be intense. Penelope will be performing a short piano piece for Aurelia. Celeste arranged it with the event planner. It would be better if Mira does not try to compete." There it was, the fear hidden beneath the insult. They did not want Mira competing because some part of them knew she might win. I said, "Mira has nothing to prove either." My mother laughed softly. "That is probably best." After we hung up, Mira looked up from her puzzle book. "Grandma was talking about me." "Yes." "She thinks I'll embarrass you?" I knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart. She is afraid you will embarrass the wrong people by being yourself." The banquet was held at Varen Hall, the old family estate on the hill above the river. Marble steps, iron gates, portraits of dead Voss men staring down hallways as if they had personally invented wealth. Mira wore a navy dress with tiny silver stars embroidered at the hem. She carried her small music folder under one arm and a puzzle book under the other. In the car, she asked, "Do I have to talk to Penelope?" I said, "You have to be polite. You do not have to let anyone be mean to you." She nodded seriously. "That is the tragedy of some children. They have to learn boundaries before they learn cursive." Inside the hall, Celeste stood near the staircase in a pale gold dress, accepting admiration like oxygen. Penelope stood beside her, wearing white satin gloves and a smile too practiced for a child. When she saw Mira, Penelope looked her up and down. "My mom says you go to a normal school." Mira blinked. "I like my school." Penelope wrinkled her nose. "My tutor says normal schools make normal children." I waited for Celeste to correct her. Celeste smiled. My daughter looked up at me, not hurt exactly, but measuring. I said calmly, "Mira, go put your coat with mine." As she walked away, Celeste leaned close. "Don't be so tense, Elara. Children repeat what they hear." I looked at her. "Yes," I said, "that is what worries me. Our place cards were not in the main ballroom." A junior event assistant found us beside the terrace doors and led us to a smaller side table near the children's area. Mira looked at the crayons, then at the empty seats near the front. "Mommy, are we sitting here because I'm a kid?" I looked at the card, Elara Voss and child. "Not Mira, child." I felt the old humiliation rise in my throat like heat. Before I could speak, my father approached. "Good, you found your table." I held up the card. "Why are we here?" He glanced toward the front, where trustees and investors were taking their seats. Seating was complicated. It seemed simple. Celeste and Penelope are near the head table. His mouth tightened. "Tonight is important. Your sister has responsibilities." I almost smiled. Responsibilities. Celeste had never met a responsibility she could not delegate and then wear earrings to. I said, "And I do not?" My father lowered his voice. "Elara, don't start. This is Aurelia's night." There it was again. The family spell. Don't start, meaning don't notice, don't object, don't make the powerful uncomfortable. Great-Grandmother Aurelia entered at 7. She was carried forward in a high-backed wheelchair, wrapped in deep violet silk, diamonds at her throat, silver hair pinned like a crown. Age had thinned her body, but not her presence. The room rose. Even the loud cousins fell silent. Aurelia's eyes moved across the room slowly, missing nothing. They passed over Celeste, over Penelope, over my parents, over the trustees. Then they found me at the side table. Her expression did not change, but one finger tapped the armrest of her chair. Aurelia had always communicated in tiny movements. A lifted brow could end a conversation. A finger tap could start a war. Dinner began. Speeches followed. My father spoke about legacy. My mother spoke about grace. Celeste spoke about stewardship with the confidence of someone who had asked an assistant to define it that morning. Mira sat quietly, completing a logic puzzle in the margin of the printed menu. Penelope noticed. "That's for babies," she whispered. Mira said, "Then babies are doing combinatorics now." I pressed my napkin to my mouth to hide my smile. Penelope stared at her. She had no idea she had been answered. Then came Penelope's piano performance. A grand piano stood near the east windows, polished black, surrounded by white roses. Celeste announced that Penelope would perform a piece specially prepared for Great-Grandmother Aurelia. Penelope sat, lifted her gloved hands, and began. The first 12 seconds were lovely. Then she forgot the middle. She started again, stopped, pressed the wrong keys, looked at her mother. The room tightened. Celeste clapped too early. "Beautiful, darling," she said loudly. My parents clapped as if they had heard a concerto. Aurelia did not clap. She looked mildly bored. Then Mira whispered, "She skipped the left-hand pattern." Unfortunately, Penelope heard. Her face went pink. "You don't even know music," Mira said. "I know that piece." Celeste laughed. "Oh, does she?" My mother gave me a warning look. I placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. "We are not here to compete." Aurelia's voice cut through the room. "Why not?" The room froze. Aurelia turned her head toward us. "Child, you say you know it?" Mira looked at me. I could feel every eye in the room waiting for her to fail. I knelt beside her and whispered, "You do not have to prove anything." She whispered back, "I want to play it correctly." So I stood and took her hand. We crossed the ballroom together. I heard Celeste whisper, "This is embarrassing." She was right. Just not for us. Mira sat at the piano. Her feet barely reached the pedals. The room waited. Then she played, not loudly, not theatrically, clearly. The melody returned whole, the left hand steady, the rhythm precise but warm. Halfway through, she added a small variation she had made up herself, a silver run of notes that moved through the room like light across water. Aurelia leaned forward. When Mira finished, there was silence. Then Aurelia laughed. A real laugh, sharp, delighted, alive. "Finally," she said, "a child who listens before touching the keys." The applause came late but strong. Mira slid off the bench and came back to me. I lifted her into my arms even though she was almost too big for it. Penelope was crying now. Celeste's face had gone stiff. My mother leaned toward me and hissed, "You planned that." I said, "I planned nothing." That child humiliated her cousin. That child played a song. My mother's eyes sharpened. "You always do this. You use pity. You use that poor little girl. You make everyone feel sorry for you because you couldn't keep a man." The words hit before I could shield myself. Mira went still in my arms. Celeste approached, voice trembling with rage disguised as injury. "Penelope is crying because of you." I said, "Penelope is crying because she was told she could not lose." Celeste's hand moved before I understood it. The slap cracked across my face in front of the entire ballroom. For 1 second, no one breathed. My cheek burned. Mira gasped, "Mommy!" That sound decided everything. I did not slap her back. I did not scream. I set Mira gently on her feet, touched her shoulder, and said, Stand behind me, sweetheart. Then I turned to my sister. For years, Celeste had taken my place, my parents' approval, my daughter's dignity, my silence, and called it natural order. Now she had put her hand on me in front of the only person I would burn the world to protect. Aurelia's voice came from the head table. Enough. The word did not sound old. It sounded final. My father rushed toward us. Elara, don't make this worse. I looked at him. There it was again. My sister struck me. My mother insulted my child. My daughter trembled behind me. And I was the danger. I reached down and picked up the black leather folder from my chair. No, I said. Tonight, I am going to make this accurate. I walked to the center of the ballroom. The investors watched. The trustees watched. My family watched with the tense curiosity of people who had mistaken a locked door for an empty room. I opened the folder. Inside were signed framework agreements, letters of intent, board approvals, banking confirmations, and sealed partner commitments. I placed the first document on the table before Aurelia. Asterion Civic Systems has finalized the Meridian Resilience Corridor Consortium. A trustee leaned forward. My father frowned. He knew the name. Everyone in old money infrastructure knew the name. They simply did not know it was mine. I continued. $3.2 billion in phased contracts across ports, flood defense, logistics corridors, and energy-resilient public transport. Voss Meridian Trust was offered a minority legacy position because Great-Grandmother Aurelia held early land rights that can simplify 2 regional approvals. The room changed. It was subtle. The air tightened. People who had ignored me all evening sat up. My father said, "How do you have those documents?" I looked at him. Because I wrote the deal. Silence. Celeste laughed once. A frightened little sound. That's impossible. I turned to her. You built a life on that word. Then I placed the next page down. Corporate registration, beneficial ownership, executive authority, my signature. Aurelia lifted the paper slowly. Her eyes moved across the page. Then she looked at me for a long moment. Asterion is yours. Yes. How long? 5 years in operation, 3 under public contracts, 14 months on this consortium. My mother whispered, "No, Elara does paperwork." Aurelia did not look at her. Clearly, one of the trustees, Mr. Vale, stood and adjusted his glasses. I can confirm Asterion Civic Systems is the lead organizer on the Meridian Corridor proposal. We were not aware Ms. Voss was the controlling executive. I said that was intentional. My father's face lost color. For years, he had thought I was the daughter with no leverage. Now he understood I had walked into the room carrying more power than anyone seated at his table. Aurelia tapped the contract with one finger. "Shh. And you brought this tonight because?" I took a breath. Because stewardship should belong to the person who builds, not the person who poses beside what others build. Celeste's mouth opened. I did not stop. Because I have been called a mistake, a warning story, a charity case, and an embarrassment. My daughter has been treated like a lesser child because she belongs to me. Tonight she was insulted, and I was struck, in a room that claims to honor legacy. My voice shook. I let it. A steady voice is not the only kind of strength. I said, if legacy means polishing cruelty until it looks like class, then I want no part of it. But if legacy means responsibility, courage, discipline, and building something that can outlive our vanity, then I have earned the right to stand here. Mira slipped her hand into mine. Aurelia looked at her. And you, child, she said, why did you play that piece? Mira swallowed. Because the song sounded sad when it was broken. Aurelia smiled. Exactly. Then Aurelia asked for the puzzle box. No one expected that. An assistant brought a small carved wooden box from a side table. It had belonged to Aurelia's father, a mechanical puzzle made of interlocking panels, number wheels, and hidden latches. Family legend said Aurelia used it to test patience. Penelope had tried earlier that afternoon and declared it boring. Aurelia placed it in front of Mira. Open it. My mother made a sound of protest. Aurelia raised one hand. The protest died. Mira studied the box. She did not grab, did not guess, did not rush. She turned it once, twice, touched the number wheels, listened to the soft clicks. Then she said, "It's not a number puzzle, it's a sequence puzzle." Aurelia's eyes brightened. Mira moved the panels in the order of the carved leaves. Oak, laurel, ivy, rose. The box opened. Inside was a brass key. The room erupted in whispers. Aurelia looked almost young. "Do you know what this opens?" Mira shook her head. "No, ma'am," Aurelia said. "Neither did half the men who inherited before you." Aurelia had the head trustee bring the trust documents. My father began speaking quickly. "Grandmother, surely we should discuss this privately." Aurelia turned toward him. "You had decades to discuss character privately. Tonight, I am discussing consequences publicly." My father stopped. My mother sat down as if her knees had weakened. Celeste held Penelope against her side like a shield. Aurelia spoke clearly enough for the whole room. "Conrad and Isolde, you mistook appearance for worth. You trained one daughter to perform superiority and another to hide competence. That is not stewardship, that is waste." My mother's mouth trembled. Aurelia continued. "Celeste, you raised a child to mock before she understands. That is not refinement. It is poverty wearing pearls." Celeste flinched. "And Penelope," Aurelia said, softer now, "you are a child. The failure began with the adults who taught you applause was owed before effort." For the first time that night, Penelope looked confused instead of proud. Then Aurelia looked at me. "Elara, you built in silence because silence was safer than asking these people to see you." My throat closed. She looked at Mira. "And this child repairs broken music because she hears what others skip." The amended trust had been prepared already. That was the part my family did not understand. Aurelia had not been fooled for years and suddenly awakened by a piano piece. She had been watching. Old power does not always move loudly. Sometimes it waits to see who reveals themselves under pressure. The trustee read the summary. Control of Voss Meridian Trust would transfer to me as principal steward upon Aurelia's passing, with immediate advisory authority beginning that night. My parents' discretionary influence was suspended pending governance review. Celeste's access to family foundation funds was frozen. Penelope's education trust would remain intact, but controlled by independent trustees, not Celeste. And Mira, my Mira, was named Future Education Fellow under the Elara Voss Young Scholars Endowment.